Morning. Can you believe it? August 26th. It doesn't feel like August 26th.
Feels like football season.
Yeah, it feels like football season. It might crack 80 today here in Memphis. A week ago this time it was 104. The heat index of about 115. But summer will be back. Hey, Rob Browne and Brenden Martin, great show for you today. Look, take a picture with your QR code.
Take a picture with your phone of the QR code.
Take your picture with your phone of the QR code. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and that's where the channel is with 8 great shows. More coming as we build this network, and we do it every day of the week. The best hour of power on the SEC.
Hour of power.
Got Jordan Davis Hill, 24/7 Sports, covers Georgia, batting first. Second, Will Vandervort, the Clemson insider from the upstate, talking about that big matchup. The Clemson side and the battle for who is the real Death Valley coming up Saturday night. Also, Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline in Oxford, Mississippi, and Rodney Orr in Tuscaloosa. Tighter Insider TV, lot to cover. So let's get started. Let's bring in Jordan. And Jordan, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Had lunch at the Fuji Cafe out in Collierville yesterday with Jeff Boone, one of the biggest dog fans on the planet. He and Thomas Boone. We were talking about you and the great coverage that you do. So, hey, you've forgotten more than I know about Georgia 100 times over. I try to study it, but one question Jeff said to ask Jordan is, how excited are you about this upgrade in receivers with Noah Thomas and Zachariah Branch?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think this room 180 from last year. I mean, I think that they went into this offseason with the objective that they knew they had to improve it. They knew that they had to make this room and take this room to the next level. And I think they've done that, and not just by who they added, but the way those guys fit into the program, even going back to spring practice. So Zachariah Branch, Noah Thomas, I think they're going to play huge roles. Colby Young back for another year. He's going to be a big-time red zone target. You got the tight ends. You got 5 high school guys. A few of those guys I think will get in the mix relatively early. I think this passing game is going to be very successful, and a lot of that is to do with what they went and added to the team and put around Gunnar Stockton to put him in position to succeed.
You know, we talked about there's 54, is it freshmen and players brought in via the portal, but the 54 guys that are relatively new to the program.
Yeah, 54% of the roster.
Okay.
So it's actually a little bit higher than 54, but yeah, are either first or second year players. And to my understanding, that is, within the Georgia program, this is either their first or second year. So yeah, I mean, it's a very inexperienced roster, but it's one that's talented. And I think that the way this team worked through the offseason, tried to make the most of summer workouts and then fall camp, I think it's put them in position to be able to get so many new guys ready. And I think that they've got a good mix of proven veterans, but also talented young guys that can go in and contribute earlier than maybe some folks would expect. So I think they're in good shape going into this season, and doing some of the different radio hits, getting ready for the season opener on Saturday against Marshall. I think it helps them. The fact they have so many young guys that they play Marshall and they play Austin Peay to start the year, kind of get a little bit of a runway, kind of get those guys, help them, know what it feels like to run out between the hedges for the first time. I'm sure there's going to be some nerves. There'll be some mistakes along the way, but I think they got a little bit of leeway to kind of figure things out before they really kick it into high gear at Tennessee in week 3.
Yeah, that is going to be September 13th. First 2 games, there'll be a lot of guys getting reps. 2 coaches that just constantly are criticized. I mean, by so many people. And I'm like, all they do is win. Mike Bobo, Stacy Searles. Stacy, of course, out of Tryon, Georgia, northeast Georgia. But I want to ask you about the offensive line. They call it the Big Red Wall. And you've had Broderick Jones, Amarius Mims out of Blakely, Georgia, Colquitt, Georgia. Is it Colquitt? Is that where Blakely is?
I'd be lying if I knew for sure, Rob.
Actually, he's from America, Sydney. Yeah. But anyway, they've had these just first-round draft picks, not just tons of them, but more than about anybody. Talk about the offensive line, because if you can build depth there, and again, Georgia fans, some of them are like, it was a down year last year. You won the SEC. I'll take a down year like that for my program any day.
Yeah, and Kirby has brought that up a few times that they still managed to win the SEC. But I mean, to me, the offensive line is going to determine how good this entire team is. You lose 4 starters from last year, the 1 starter coming back. You move positions, moving him from left tackle to right, and yeah, I mean, I want to see these offensive tackles, and again, kind of looking to week 3 at Tennessee, how they play. Monroe Freeling, who played a good bit at the end of last year when Ernest Green was banged up. Monroe struggled against Notre Dame, had a rough showing, gave up the pressure that led to the sack right before halftime that kind of swung that game. How does he handle being a starter for the first time? Yeah, for a long stretch for the entire season, and then how Ernest plays on the other side. He's a guy that 2 years ago was fantastic as the left tackle, and last year he battled injury, and you could tell he wasn't the same, and he really struggled. So I think they feel good about their interior. They got Michael Morris at left guard. They got Drew Bobo. Drew's a guy that I think a lot of people see the last name and think, well, okay, coach's kid. Drew Bobo, I think, is going to play in the NFL one day. He is a very good interior, a good center, and I think he's going to play well this year. And then the big surprise or one of the emerging stars on this team at right guard, I think Juan Gaston, a true freshman 5-star. I think that he's going to start on Saturday. And, the sky's the limit with him. People are super high on him and have been really since spring practice.
Yeah.
And he deserves a lot of credit. He cut about 20, 25 pounds off of his frame. He came in a little bit heavy to Georgia, but he was dedicated. He put in the work, and I think that at least caught the coach's attention right away. And then they got to work and got to see him move and how quickly he picked up on things. And if Juan Gaston does not start on Saturday, I can promise you it won't be long before he is.
Well, Malachi Starks is out, and Paul Wickenheiser always watches out in Reno. The Burgermeister from Atlanta, big Georgia fan, said, "What about KJ Bolden? What's the ceiling on this kid? Out of one of the few out of, I guess he broke the code on the Buford, Georgia pipeline, but I really think he is an absolute. He's legit 5-star."
I think he can be an All-American. Like I think that he's that good, and I think the wildest thing with KJ, when we talked to him last week about this, it is a very drastic situation for him this year compared to last year. Last year he comes in as a true freshman. Expectations are super high, but Georgia's got Malachi Starks. Georgia's got Dan Jackson, who had a really good season. And so KJ, he explained, he can kind of be quiet. He can kind of sit back and learn from those guys, which I think helped him a ton. And he played a lot too. He made 2 starts and played in the majority of the games. Now all of a sudden, Starks is gone. Dan Jackson's also in the NFL. And T-Rob told us earlier in fall camp, all of a sudden I'm looking to KJ as the veteran in the room, and we're talking about a second-year guy.
Yeah.
But he's met the moment and been willing to lead that group. And I think that speaks wonders as much as his talent and his ability on the field. He's gotten more comfortable speaking up. He's gotten more comfortable leading a room with 3 transfers and a lot of new faces. As drastically different as that situation is, I think he's done a good job of navigating it, and I really expect him to have a very strong season to be one of Georgia's leaders on this team.
I do too. The defensive front for Georgia, how deep is it compared to the last 5 years? In fact, that's an unfair question. How deep is it?
It's pretty deep, and I do think it's deeper than it was last year, and that's where I am kind of, I'm bullish on where this defensive line can go and what they can accomplish. Because to me, when you have guys that you can rotate in regularly, I just think that means so much, especially with the teams that Georgia's going to play. Tennessee's, Alabama, Auburn, Texas, Ole Miss. There's going to be Florida. There's going to be some battles in the trenches, and you need a lot of guys, and you're going to lose some guys along the way. But I think for me, you're probably looking at Gabe Harris, Christian Miller, and Jordan Hall as your starting defensive line. But Xavier McLeod's going to be in the mix. Elijah Griffin is going to. I want to see Marshall and Austin Peeweeks if Elijah just does something that catches everybody's attention. I think he's got a chance to get some run. Nnamdi Agboko, Joseph Jonah Ajanye. I really like the depth they have, and I'll be interested, once we get into SEC play, how much rotation we see. They may kind of take it easy with some guys, but I think that they've got depth on their side at defensive line. They're going to need Christian Miller and Jordan Hall to sort of set the example up there and set the standard. But I think they're feeling good about what they got at their disposal, and I think you'll see that once we get into some of these big time SEC games.
All right. Is this, I guess this question, wide receiver kind of has blocked out the sun for the running back position, at least in the eyes of the NFL. Has the edge rusher done that same thing to the interior defensive lineman?
I think it's a fair question, and it's different, I think, depending on what defense you're talking about. I mean, Georgia, a lot of those times, really last year was kind of an exception to the rule as far as all the time Georgia's edge rushers, the outside linebacker, they don't really rack up a whole lot of stats. But I think that's part of a defense that, on the whole, if you look, even Georgia's best defenses, they usually don't have a ton of sacks and a lot of tackles for loss. So I think it's a fair thing to bring up. And yeah, I mean, Georgia, they need some people to step up at outside linebacker at their jack position. I'm watching Quintavious Johnson, who's a sophomore, Ella Mendoza, that's the Army transfer, and one of the guys that really broke out during fall camp, Chris Jones, guy that was recruited as an inside linebacker, gets moved outside, and he's done a really good job. Got some significant run in their last scrimmage. Chris Jones is a name to know on this defense too.
You think about this Georgia team. I've got Georgia playing Alabama for the SEC, and I have Georgia winning. And I say that to you, I'll say it to anybody. I whittled it down. I just think for 60 minutes, Georgia's guys embrace a culture like, say, no, there's no comparison, but in a way, the Ranger culture, Rangers lead the way. Georgia, they have been tougher physically and mentally than everybody else. Now, they got a ton of talent, but, last year, 37 drops. They overcame that. You've improved the wide receiver room this year. You just talked about the offensive line. There's talent there. So get back to Gunnar Stockton. What's he like in practice when you're around him and all? Is there any doubt? I wouldn't think that he's the quarterback. He's the alpha.
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy, and I think you saw that even going back to the SEC title game last year. You could just tell that the team rallied around him. I mean, you had guys, Austin Luckham making a toe tap catch on the sideline. I mean, and when the game ended, I mean, you could tell how much it meant to them. And I mean, I think Gunnar is, a lot of Georgia fans, I think, are upset at Carson Beck and how things played out. But, Carson was a guy that waited his turn, and Gunnar's done the same thing. Gunnar's going into his fourth year in the program. This is a guy that's bided his time, that's done everything right, that's waited to get his opportunity. A guy that grew up a big Georgia fan. So, I think people are excited about him, not only because of his playmaking ability, but what he means to the team. And, I do think that it carries some weight that this is a Georgia guy. You could probably bring up games he watched as a kid, and I think he's ready to take this moment and run with it. I expect there will be some bumps along the way. There will be some tough outings, but I think he's fully capable of going out there and helping Georgia be a national title contender again. And if you're a Georgia fan, I don't know that you can ask for much else.
No, I got a friend of mine is a fantasy draft the other day. He got Brock Bowers as a tight end, Jaden Daniels as quarterback, and Jamar Chase as wide receiver. I think it's going to be a good year. All right, before you go, what are you writing about? People need to be paying attention to. Talk about your podcast. Let them know how they can follow you. And always, thanks more than you know for sharing your time with us. We absolutely treasure it when you come on here because you really, really, really know your stuff.
I appreciate that. Dogs247.com. Still got that 50% off sale, so jump on that. I think that's going to end on Thursday. Writing this morning, Kirby kind of talked about what he wants to see out of the offense on Saturday, some of the stuff he's going to be looking for. Wrote a little bit about Marshall, a whole new team. Lost a lot of guys to the portal, got a new head coach, so kind of made things interesting for Georgia. We'll be working on predictions as we go through this week. Junkyard Dogcast podcast, go subscribe to that. We'll have a new podcast live 12 p.m. Eastern time, 11 a.m. Central. So busy week, game week, but super excited it's here and ready to get this thing going.
Hey, can you see that picture behind me that Jeff Boone? That's Uga trying to bite Robert Baker. That's pretty popular picture in Georgia, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and my dad's got it too, so it gets around. I can promise you.
All right. Hey, take care, man. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend.
All right, see you guys.
All right. We're gonna head over to the upstate, Clemson, South Carolina. Hey, for those folks in the South, you can put a P in there. Clemson. I like the way that sounds. Up on Lake Hartwell. Steeler Will Vandervort. Good morning. Thank you for taking time to share with us. You came on with us a couple of times this summer. People love it, and you really know your stuff. How you doing this morning? You excited about what's going on? Are y'all getting any of this cool weather in the upstate?
Yeah, we are. It's pretty cool here today. A little overcast right now, but it's supposed to be nice this weekend for the game. Don't seem like it'll be too bad. I think the highs are like upper 80s, so by the time kickoff goes, it'll be like in the 70s, and so that'll be really good. Probably be a little humid because it is the South, but it's not going to be like it is in Baton Rouge. I can guarantee you that. So the people coming from Louisiana are going to like this a whole lot more. But yeah, it's going to be. It seems like it's going to be pretty nice and all. By the way, talking about that picture behind you of the of Uga biting the Auburn player. Yeah. My old photographer back when I was down and working in newspapers in South Georgia, he was at that game, and he's got his own picture of that. And so Walter Jardine, if you're listening, buddy, a little shout out to you. He's got a picture of it too. And so he like came and showed me that as soon as he got it, and it was pretty cool. So so that's one of my favorite pictures of all time too. And be working down in South Georgia when that happened at the time. Yeah. I think Auburn won. Georgia won that game, if I'm not mistaken.
4 overtimes.
That was the overtime game. I thought that's what it was. So yeah,
it was horrible. Auburn's up 28-7, second quarter. Scores another touchdown to go up 35-7. Got called back, and then on the last, then they went 28-7. They goes at the end of the game. The last play, Mike Bobo drops back and hits receiver right there on the goal line. All Auburn should have, pass interference, do something. But I think that was the first overtime game in the Deep South. That's the first game.
I think it was. It was, and it was the longest. Also, I know Clemson had their first overtime game the very next year against Duke, and it was the first time that a team won an overtime game on a defensive play. So Clemson got the ball, kicked a field goal, and was up 13-10, and then intercepted Rakeem Abdullah, defensive end for Clemson, 1997, intercepted a deflected pass and took it back for a touchdown, and Clemson won 19-10 in overtime.
Wow. That's the weirdest score I've ever heard.
So it was the first time a defensive score ended a overtime game. And so
a bit of trivia. I mean, that is awesome. All right, Steeler Will, my goodness, our intern, Oakley McFerrin, watching right now down in Auburn, a sophomore, is a Steelers fanatic. Who isn't? If you follow the Steelers, you follow Clemson. You know that program well.
Yeah, I do.
Let's get that perspective from Clemson, because 1939, you talked about it. Was it Frank Howard, Death Valley? 1959, when Billy Cannon returned the punt against Ole Miss Halloween night, it's their Death Valley. There's a lot on the line Saturday night.
Yeah, so and I'm actually on tonight's podcast. It's going to be headlined "Time to Educate LSU Fans on Clemson." So that's what my headline's going to be. So hopefully, bring some LSU fans on, because one of the things I'm educating them on is why Clemson is the original Death Valley and is the Death Valley, and it was Clemson that allows LSU to borrow the moniker, not the other way around. Because Clemson has been calling it Death Valley since 1945, when PC Presbyterian College's Lonnie McMillan, after being beat the year before 76-0 by Clemson, he told his boys, we got to go down to Death Valley. And the reason he calls it Death Valley has nothing to do with the cemetery that's by. You hear people say that all the time. There is a cemetery right next to Memorial Stadium, but it has nothing to do with the moniker Death Valley. It's called Death Valley because it's actually in a valley. If you ever been to Clemson, it is in a valley. That's why they run down a 110-foot hill before the games. They run into the stadium they run into the valley. And so he called it Death Valley because it was always deaf to them. They always got their butts beat. They played every year at Clemson. They got their butts handed to them by Clemson. And so he called it Death Valley. And and the moniker stuck. Coach Howard started calling that in the late 40s. He was already started calling it that. And then urban legend. Clemson has a date, it's 1945 of when it was called Death Valley.
Okay.
LSU can't really decide on a date. And it's the earliest account is 1959, urban legend with Billy Cannon going, and the locals, the Cajuns ran out and they were trying to say Death Valley with the F, but they couldn't say it, and it sounded like Death Valley. I've heard that one. I've heard several other stories. They don't really know when it started. Clemson has a time. They know when it started. Clemson was way earlier, even before their earliest account of their urban legend started. So Clemson's got 15 years on them before that. And so Clemson is the original college football. I like to say, because Death Valley is actually Death Valley, California. We know that. Yeah. So Clemson, I like to say, Clemson should go ahead and trademark this, college football's original Death Valley.
Yeah.
And that ends it if they do that.
Yeah, you're right. And that Death Valley in California, it'll get up 132 degrees, but no humidity. I love it when people say that. No humidity. You're like, but it's still 132. All right, matchups on game day are what matter most. You got two quarterbacks.
Absolutely.
You and I were talking last night on the cellular phones. Kay Klubnik out of Austin Westlake. He's a legend in Texas. He played in that state championship game against Quinn Ewers. People forget about that. Let's talk about him. You got Garrett Nussmeier on the other side. The offensive lines for both teams, we've got some studs. They're going to be out there Saturday night.
Yeah, they do. I think when it starts with LSU and you look at, who they got Barry and Browne. Clemson fans are all too familiar with him and what he did at Kentucky in the Gator Bowl a couple years ago, where I think he had like 150 receiving yards. He had like a 65-yard touchdown. And then he also had like a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown in that game. He was electric, probably the best game of his career to this point. They also got, Arian Henderson, another outstanding wide receiver they brought in. He's going to be a dangerous weapon for Clemson as well. They're really good on the outside. Obviously, they got the freshman running back in Caden Durham, I guess. I'm saying that right. And he's a guy they really like. Looks like he's going to play. Saw him go for like a 60-yard touchdown in their practice video from their scrimmage last week or whatever. So he's obviously an explosive playmaker. So they got some weapons, I think, and for Nussmeier, even more than he had last year. And I think that's going to make him even more of a dangerous quarterback. But I think when you look at this game, to me, it comes down to Clemson's defensive line against that offensive line. And I tell people, here's why Brian Kelly made the mistake of poking the bear at Clemson. If he had a veteran offensive line, it wouldn't be as big a deal. But they got a total of combined 16 snaps working together coming into this game. This offensive line does for LSU. And they're going into Clemson for their first game working together. Anybody that's been in Clemson knows how loud it gets inside that stadium, especially on the visitor side, the opposite end of the hill. And a team with a veteran offensive line is going to have at least 2 or 3 illegal procedures. Generally, when you see an inexperienced offensive line, a la AS Louisville back in 2016, they had 7 illegal procedure penalties because it's hard to communicate down there until you've played at Clemson and you understand that you're in a valley and that the sound goes down. It doesn't go up like most stadiums do. It goes down. It's extremely loud on that field. And that is what makes it hard for somebody who's not used to it to communicate. So by Brian Kelly saying Death Valley Jr., and then by saying, we're going to let Clemson borrow the moniker, he's pissed off the Clemson fans. I'm just going to say it. He's made them mad. And they're going to be he made them mad Notre Dame in 2015. If you go back and look, because there was a hurricane coming, I think he thought it was like he was going into Raleigh or Chapel Hill, and they were going to have like 10,000 people there. He gets in there, and you can see his eyes when he sees 81,500 fans there with a hurricane coming down on him. Just a downpour pouring down on him. And he was stunned to see the place be that loud. His team wasn't ready for it. It took them 3.5 quarters for they were able to understand what was going on. They had like 3 or 4 illegal procedure penalties, and he had a veteran offensive line in that game. Yeah. And so, I'm surprised he poked the bear knowing he has a very inexperienced offensive line coming into Clemson. And then you got to go up against those defensive ends, those defensive tackles. To me, that's where this game is going to be won or lost. If Clemson can push up the middle, get Nussmeier off his spot, make him feel uncomfortable in the pocket like Alabama did last year in that 42-13 blowout, like Florida did in their win down in the swamp, like Texas A&M did in their win that in Texas A&M. That's the medicine. That's how you beat LSU. And right now, even Brian Kelly said he's worried about the guys up the middle of his offensive line.
Yeah, and you think about Maury Gaston told me his Aunt Mildred from Columbiana, Alabama, pointed out to him one time that Florida's football stadium is the only one in the South that truly goes underground. It goes about 10 or 12 rows down, and that is unique because you come in at ground on the street and you do go down, traps the noise. I've been to Clemson Stadium. My son has. That's a really tough place to play. But what's beautiful is when you can sit there and see the hills in the upstate, the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is gorgeous. It's a gorgeous setting. The first time I went to Clemson was April of 1984. You come in and you hit Lake Hartwell and you see catamarans and sailboats and stuff, and you're like, holy shnikes, where's the SO Club?
It is.
Do they sell Ham's beer there, by the way, at the SO Club?
I don't know. I know you can get your PBR and your Bud Lights and your Coors, your banquet beer and all that good stuff. So your Heineken, if you will, you can get all that good stuff there. But I'm not sure about that one. If you like a good Guinness, I think they have Guinness there. So,
yeah.
But the thing I like about when you come across the bridge going into Clemson, if you're coming from Georgia, right, and you're crossing over the bridge, is you can see the stadium. It's like you see the stadium sticking out over Lake Hartwell, and it's like a really good view. And if you're coming in on boat, it's even more beautiful with the golf course right there as well. And so it's a beautiful setting. If you're in the upper deck, so a lot of LSU fans will be, you're going to love it, like you just said, because the sun's going to set, and it's going to be an orange and purple sky right on top of the mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains. A gorgeous scene. It's one of the more spectacular scenes in college football when the sun sets and you get that orange. It's crazy because it's an orange and purple haze sitting over the Death Valley, which obviously orange and purple is Clemson's colors.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if the copyright, they could get old Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze, play that for the team to come out. Purple Haze. That would be awesome. All right. Now, what do you think happens Saturday night? LSU will bring a lot of people. Our friend Frank Duffy, who's on our show, part of our team, he's going up there with Bengal 1, and they will be cooking. I don't have a feeling yet for this game. I'm going to pick it tomorrow with Dave Bartu on the show.
Yeah, I can't pick it till I'm on the Tiger pregame show, so I can't officially pick it until Saturday.
Okay.
But what I can tell you, I said one of the keys of the game, I think the biggest key is obviously Clemson's defensive line against LSU's offensive line. I think it comes down to that matchup more than anything.
Okay.
I think LSU will hold their own against Clemson's offense and vice versa. I think you're going to see LSU's defense is going to be improved. I really do. I think they won't be as bad as they were last year. I was stunned to see how bad they were on defense last year. I mean, they were bad. Yeah. I think they'll be better, just like Clemson will be better on defense this year. I don't know why LSU was bad. I know why Clemson was bad, obviously. And so it'd be interesting to see why, how much improved LSU is because like Clemson, they got a lot of the same players. And so obviously at linebacker, I think they're going to be much improved. They got the Weeks brothers, which are, going to be outstanding. They got 3 of them now. And of course they also have, help me out. The other Harold Perkins, the other linebacker, who I think takes another step this year in his development. And I think you're going to see him become a better. And I'm interested in how they use him because it's going to be like Clemson with Jeremiah Alexander. How does Clemson use Jeremiah Alexander, the transfer from Alabama? They really like him. They want to get him on the field. Do they use him as their big tiger, where he's like an extra linebacker on the field for them? So they're saying they're in a 4-2, but they're really in a 4-3 with the extra pass rusher on the outside. How do they use him? And so I'm the kind of same way with Harold Perkins. How does LSU use him?
Yeah.
Because he's an extremely talented linebacker who can make plays. So you got Whit Weeks, who I think is extremely intelligent, one of those intelligent linebackers you like to have that kind of is the quarterback of the defense. But then you got, Perkins over there who can he's a playmaker. And you got to let him go. And I'm interested to see how LSU uses him. So in that matchup with Clemson, offense versus LSU's defense. I think he is the key ingredient on that. Can he find a way to get to Klubnik and get him out of his spot? Even though Klubnik's more mobile than Nussmeier, we know that, and makes a lot of plays outside the pocket. You still, regardless, you want to pressure the quarterback. That's the name of the game. You got to make the quarterback feel uncomfortable. And so that's one of the keys for LSU is they got to make Cade Klubnik feel uncomfortable to where he has to feel like he's got to run backwards every time. And that's a bad habit Cade has. When he's pressured, he runs backwards a lot. And so he's got to stop doing that. And I'm sure that's something they've worked on him with this year is to maybe move side to side. Don't go backwards because that puts your offense in a bad situation if you do.
Yeah. One thing before you go. This will be the 30th start for Cade Klubnik. I think it'll be, the 14th for Garrett Nussmeier.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 23 defense LSU was historically god-awful, okay? And now Chad Baker in his second year after coming from Missouri, they should be better. But I like the Dave Bartu College Football Matrix comes on the show Mondays. This week it'll be on Wednesday. Number of starts. This is number 30 for Klubnik. Number 13, I believe, for Nussmeier.
Mm-hmm.
I can see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And you can too.
Yeah, I think, the having that in a game of this magnitude is huge. And you saw Nussmeier, first-year starter last year, right? You saw that in that Alabama game. You saw that in that Texas A&M game. If you go back and watch, you saw that in the Florida game where, you could see that inexperience showed up just like it did for Cade the year before.
Yeah.
Right? And so I do think Nussmeier takes another step. Now, he's got to come into Clemson's Death Valley and do it. Is he capable? Absolutely he is. He's a talented player, smart young man, very, between the ears, he's good. And if he has like Joe Burrow type time to throw the football, Clemson's in trouble. I'm going to tell you that right now. Clemson's in trouble if they can't get pressure on him.
Yes.
So that's the key for Clemson. They got to get pressure and make him uncomfortable, get him off his spot. Unlike Cade, who can make plays outside the pocket, Nussmeier's not known for making plays outside the pocket. He does not want to do that. And so, he wants to sit in the middle and just toss that football. And so that's huge. But, yeah, right now I would say Clemson has the advantage because of Cade Klubnik playing in a little bit more of these games. That extra 15 starts is a benefit to him. Huge. And, and that's going to help, and that's why you saw Cade play so well against Texas last year because he had that experience. He wasn't overwhelmed by the moment.
Yeah. All right. Great stuff. Get you back on again soon. Keep us informed on the ACC and all. I'm telling you, Louisville, Miami, Georgia Tech, Clemson, North Carolina. I wouldn't sleep on those guys. They're going to be fun to watch. But there's some talent and there's some good team. That top five will win a lot of games. How do people follow you? And you got a podcast tonight.
Yeah, you can follow me at Steeler Will on X, also at Clemson Insider on X, and on Facebook, the Clemson Insider Facebook page. You can also, my podcast tonight will be on live. We're going to have William Quackenbush from the Clemson Athletic Network. He'll be joining us to talk about this LSU game and break it down. Follow me tonight on our podcast. Believe in Clemson is the name of my podcast. You can find it on our YouTube channels and the Clemson Insider, also on my YouTube page, all that. Just type in Believe in Clemson and you'll find us.
All right, showdown in the upstate Saturday night. Listen to his prediction. Thank you, Steeler Will.
All right, Rob, thanks.
You bet. All right, let me say hello to someone watching right now, Will Johnson down in Mobile, Alabama. Advanced Fluid Power, that's the company. Look him up on the web, Advanced Fluid Power. Love old Will Johnson. Great American, great patriot, great American patriot, of course. Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. Catch them Monday nights, 6 o'clock. Sports 56 WHBQ and Super Talk Mississippi. It is a Tuesday. We're going to catch Yancy before he gets over to the Tallahatchie Grill on the square in Oxford for some of that gumbo. How you doing, Yancy?
Well, it's finally cooling off to have a little gumbo, right?
Do you remember this time last week? You could have cooked it on the street.
Oh, man. It was brutal.
Enjoy it while we got it, man. That's all I can say.
That's right. It'll be back to 100 degrees in a week.
That's right. All right, man. What's going on with the football team? It is a different world we live in now. Lane Kiffin's got that program ginning. You got Pete Golding signed a big new contract. Got a lot of new guys coming in. So break it down. And Rodney Orr will be on in a minute. We'll have both of you going. Alabama and Ole Miss, but this is just an awesome time of year.
Yeah, I think, with Pete's contract being signed, bringing more continuity to that side of the ball, that was what was really missing the first couple years of the Lane Kiffin era at Ole Miss. And now, honestly, the defense is really the star of the team now for the Rebels. And I don't think anybody would have predicted that in a Lane Kiffin tenure for any school. But that defensive line is definitely where they will lean, put their hat on, so to speak. They're going to be really, really good in that front seven. We talked the last year how many guys I really think that they can rely on. I think they're up to 9 guys on the defensive line now that they really feel like they can go to war with. And, it's going to be interesting to see if Lane does his normal go for it on fourth down about 50, 60% of the time, or if he kind of leans on that defense, kicks some field goals, and lets their new quarterback Simmons kind of come along slowly and rely on that ground game. That's something that I think everybody's going to have their eyes on. In a game like Georgia State, I'm sure he'll still fling it around on 4th and 4, 4th and 5 a lot, but it will be interesting to see how that plays out as the season progresses.
Who are the backup quarterbacks?
Well, you got a guy that's a D2 guy. He was actually the D2 player of the year that's kind of taken over as the second string, but he's more of a wildcat type quarterback.
Okay.
We saw JJ Piggies played that role last year, but he does have some packages where he throws the ball. And then Maddox, the kid out of Oak Grove that they signed last
Okay.
year, that they're kind of grooming him for the future.
Oak Grove's down near Hattiesburg, isn't it?
It is. It's in
Yeah.
Hattiesburg. It's just a suburb of Hattiesburg.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So looking at the defense, Sunterrain Perkins is a guy that he's really good, but he's got some help in the linebacker room there. I don't know. Pete Golding, he puts those guys in schemes where they win. And you look at the losses last year, they weren't 49-21. They were the Kentucky game. I'm not sure they got the wake-up call. LSU until the last play of the game. And then Florida when they were peaking and it was just the wrong place at the wrong time. How much better can the defense be this year? And is Sunterrain the unquestioned leader?
Yeah, Xavier Harris, the defensive tackle, 6'7", 335 pounds.
Wow.
He's just a man child right now. He's unblockable. This will be his fourth year in the system. And then Cam Franklin is probably the most improved defender. He's 6'5", 295. He's
Good.
going to play inside outside like Ivy did last year, Jared Ivy. I don't know if you remember him or not. He'll play on the defensive end, strong side, and he'll slide down at defensive tackle on the other plays. There's really a lot of leaders there on defense. Is it going to be? They had the most sacks, the most negative yardage tackles last year. Number one in rushing defense. They were top two in defense in every stat you could think of. I don't know if they're going to be top two, but I would be a little surprised if they weren't top 10 in the country in all the stats. They're going to be really, really good defensively. It's just going to come down to how well does that offensive line gel to allow that running game to develop, to take some pressure off of Simmons, to allow him to develop, right? You were just going over with your guest before at Clemson about the number of starts for each one of those players. Well, a lot of these players at Ole Miss, like Simmons at quarterback, this will be their very first start. So a lot of newness at Ole Miss this year.
Well, everybody's got turnover. And you look at Lane Kiffin's teams, 3 of the last 4 years, top 12 finishes. What's the general mindset, not just of the fans, but of the players when you talk with them compared to, say, 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
Well, man, there's a true belief that they're one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country going into the season every year. We
Yeah.
all know they fell short last year. You know, they lost 3 games by a total of 13 points. They didn't win one game last year underneath 17 points. Every game they won was a blowout, and the only 3 close games they lost all 3. So, you know, they got to turn that around this year. A lot of that happened last year because of the lack of run game in critical times and turnovers, right?
Yeah.
So they've got to take care of the football, and they got to establish a run game. Now, I think they were still 4th in the conference in rushing yardage, and I think top 25 nationally in rushing yardage. So it's not that they can't run the ball. It's can they run the ball when everybody in the stadium and your wife knows that they're about to run the ball, right? That's when you have to be able to run the ball, and that's where they were not effective last year. But they were running guys that were more scat back type running backs. And this year, you know, they got 4 guys that they'll use, and 3 of them are over 220 pounds. So they've got a lot of thumpers, a lot of guys with a lot of power, and they're really excited about this true freshman, Mills Knight from Chattanooga that played at Baylor. He's 6'3", 225 pounds, kind of that old Alabama style running back, right? Najee
Yeah.
Harris type style, just a big old guy that has a lot of speed. Now, when he gets in open field, don't let his size fool you. The guy can absolutely burn it.
Yeah. Well, milk carton time. Has anybody seen the fullback? Does he exist anymore? I mean, you're
No,
talking about a
no.
bunch of 220 thumpers. Wow. And you know what? The fullback kind of like the deep snapper. If you're a good fullback, like, you know, Tony Richardson from Daleville, Alabama, I remember he played 16, 17 years in the NFL. It's not that you're not getting hit, but it's a long-term position. All right, let's look at the wide receiver room. You have said before on this show, this group may be better than last year. Expand on that.
Yeah. It's deeper. You know, they feel like they've got 8 wide receivers that they can go to war with in the SEC. I think last year you really had 4 at tops 5. Now those 4 or 5 were really good, but they're really deep in that wide receiver room. I would say that the receiver room and the defensive line group are the deepest on the team. You know, Caden Lee, he's going to be the guy that Simmons. He's always going to look for a bailout. I look for him if he, you know, any injuries, he doesn't get hurt. I think he'll, you know, push for the country and receptions and yardage. He'll have 89, 90 type receptions, you know, 12, 1,300 yards receiving. His route running is special. He's the complete package, and the perfect slot in lanes offense. That Elijah Moore type wide receiver that can really do a lot of things. He's set up to have a monster season.
And, you know, I asked this to Jordan Hill earlier from 24/7 Sports, who covers Georgia. It looks like the wide receiver position has blocked out the sun for the running back. Same thing with the edge rusher for the interior defensive tackle. Would you agree with me, or is it maybe somewhere in the middle of that?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in the middle there. I think, you know, with Lanes, he recruited some guys. He got a lot of guys that are 6'2", 215 type, 6'3", 215, 220. He's kind of going back to the bigger receivers that Ole Miss had back in the day, the NWO days,
Yeah.
the nasty wideouts back
Yeah.
in the Hugh Freeze era at Ole Miss when they had a bunch of big thick receivers. I think they're going back to that right now. You got 4 or 5 of those really thick, big receivers that are going to help the running game. I think you know, they'll be able to block well, block on the perimeter. So yeah, I mean, that's a good point you made, and I think it kind of lies in the middle.
You got Georgia State as the first game. Dell McGee in like his second year there. Dell McGee's, you know, a longtime running game coordinator at Georgia, arguably one of the better recruiters in the SEC. What do you expect from them? I mean, we all remember they beat Tennessee when Shatner, you know, remember Shatner from The Longest Yard? That's what Jeremy Pruitt looks a lot like. But they beat Tennessee back just a few years ago, and they've got talent. It's easy to leave Georgia, Georgia Tech, Auburn, any of these SEC schools, and go to Atlanta. You think this presents any problems?
Well, if you remember, I don't know, it's kind of hard to even remember because Vanderbilt's successful season last year, but they went in at
Yep,
Vandy and beat
they
them
did.
last year.
They
You know,
did.
so
Yeah.
they've got two former Ole Miss running backs there on the roster. They brought in Branson Robinson from Georgia. That was the number one running back in the country 2 or 3 years ago, and he kind of sat behind a couple other running backs, got a little disgruntled, got hurt, then left. He's at Georgia State now. They got 34 transfers. They got 17 that come from Power Four programs. He's the speaking of Bell there. He's doing a good job and getting a lot of good talent in there. Will they be able to gel in time this year to be productive? I don't know. They bring back their quarterback, which is always a huge plus. We'll see how they fare as the season. They got a really tough schedule. They're playing out a lot of good teams this year, which is not going to help the record. But I think it'll be a somewhat quality opponent for Ole Miss. But what sets up better this year for Ole Miss is last year you started off with four really bad teams.
Yeah.
I call them the slippery rots of the world, and then you had
Yeah.
SEC play, and you played Kentucky with those two mammoth defensive tackles, and they ate Ole Miss's lunch
Yeah.
on the inside there, and they weren't prepared for that type of level of play. And you only get one of those games this year, and then you have back-to-back SEC games. So I think the schedule sets up a little bit better to get Ole Miss prepared for the vigors of the SEC wars.
Yeah, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Georgia State might be the next Southern Miss. They have a lot going for them being in Atlanta. Rodney Orr, Title Insider, joins us. Rodney, Yancy and I have been talking some Ole Miss and SEC. You're in Tuscaloosa. Ty Simpson is driving the ship. What are you hearing about practice and all as Alabama gets ready to go down to Tallahassee, and Chief Osceola aboard Renegade, and this crowd is going wild at Doak S. Campbell Stadium and Bobby Bowden Field?
You should do the intro, Rob.
That's Gene Deckerhoff, the voice of the Florida State Seminoles.
They should put you on ABC.
Yeah, right.
No, it's I mean, like I said last week, it's been really positive here. There's a lot of optimism surrounding this team. I mean, it's Ty Simpson has had a great camp. He has. Look, I mean, if you just listen to people, there's some people that say that they're surprised by the significant jump that he's taken, that in the practices and the scrimmages. With that said, I think everybody realizes those are practices and scrimmages. Let's see how, he responds when the lights go on Saturday, because that's when it counts. And, that's where a quarterback is truly measured. So, but he's done a great job. I mean, I think there's a lot of excitement about him. I think, they feel really confident about their offensive line. Now, the one thing on, that side of the ball that you have a concern about is Jam Miller, your experienced running back, and really your only experienced running back. He's out, and probably till at least Georgia. They feel like that some of the other guys up a little bit, but Daniel Hill is, I think, the name to remember. Out of Meridian. Okay. He's had a really good camp.
Oh,
240. Yeah, Daniel Hill. He's had a really good camp. And I think he may be Daniel Hill team. Talked about. I mean, I think feel really good about their. They've made some strides. They're really fast in the second.
Yeah, Rodney.
And I feel like this secondary is as loaded as any secondary had.
Yeah, because you're breaking up a little bit, but you're talking about the defensive line too. Freddie Roach, he's got some talent to work with. What does it look like the starting group will be?
Yeah, Timmy is the blue collar leader.
Yeah. Okay. Rodney, we're losing you. And if you can come back in, we'll do it. But Freddie Roach is coaching the defensive line at Ole Miss, Yancy. And that position, that's just where Ole Miss, that's been that's been their savings account. I mean, every year under Kiffin, it's gotten better. Maybe not the numbers this year. They had a couple of years ago with 13 trustable. And I love that term that you use, trusted defensive linemen. And I look around the SEC and in college football as a whole, that's the hardest position to find depth, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. That and offensive line. There's some good offensive linemen, but this portal is where it's really hurt that group more than any because you need
Yeah.
continuity, right? I
Yeah.
mean, they've got to be, it's like you have to be on a dance team together, your feet, your hands,
Yeah.
everybody has to be in unison. And that's kind of hurt the development of offensive lines. You hear people like myself that cover teams or athletics around the country. And,
Yeah.
I would say the number one worry for everybody, it seems to be offensive line, right? But yeah, I mean, quality defensive linemen are so hard. That's why they cost so much money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not only in college, but in the NFL.
Yeah, that's right. Rodney Orr will try it again. The defensive line for Alabama, it looks like there's some better talent there this year. Let's talk about the front guys and then the guys behind them, the depth chart.
Well, like I was saying, Tim Keenan is he's kind of the leader. I think he's the leader of this defense up front. You got Keenan, you got LT Overton, James Smith. Those first three really, really good. I think the question is what's behind them? Jeremiah Beeman is a guy they're expecting a lot out of. Edric Hill, another guy. Keon Keeley, Jordan Renaud, Kelby Collins. I'm throwing out some names. All those guys we have to see. They have to be developed. And, they've been, some of them have been in the program long enough to take that next step.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it's a sign of the times when you talk about one healthy running back, that depth chart at Alabama. It's just, but it is, it is the time that we live in right now. All right. I want to ask you about the wide receivers. Everybody knows Ryan Williams' name, Wilkie Bernard behind him and all, but talk about the depth chart because the wide receiver, it's getting a lot more attention than the running back position. And I'm not sure in the SEC that historically that hadn't been a prescription for success, but it is now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Bernard and Ryan Williams, but Isaiah Horton, the transfer from Miami, I mean, a big difference in this wide receiver core. He brings a physical presence, about 6.
Yeah, Rodney, we're breaking up. We can't. Yeah, yeah. Well, we kept.
I think Alabama. I think Alabama is, and I know a lot about their program just because in the coaching world, assistants go from one program to the next, and I've still got great contacts there. And I think their wide receiver room is going to be fine. I think their defensive line is going to be fine. Freddie
Yeah,
Roach has been maligned over there at Alabama by their fans unfairly to me, kind of like
yeah,
Pete Golding was while he was
yeah,
over there.
yeah,
I think Alabama. I mean, it really all comes down right to Ty, and I think getting the offensive coordinator in there that kind of threw a wrinkle in their plans last year when Graver, stayed over there at Seattle, and now he's back reunited with his head coach over there at Alabama, and
yeah.
I think that's really smoothed out a lot of the process on the offensive side of the ball for Bama. They're set up for a monster year if Ty can handle the duty.
Yeah, right now, Georgia and Alabama, I got them playing for the SEC, and I think this league compared to last year, the SEC, Missouri again, they're out on the western flank. They just don't get the respect that they've earned, and I think it's ridiculous the way a lot of people say, "Oh, Missouri, they're nothing." Yeah, they are. I mean,
Yeah,
Eli Drinkowitz
they're
can flat
formidable.
out coach, and I tell you what, the number of people just ripping on Lane Kiffin, I was like Tennessee fans, and I'm married to one. He was there 1 year. Okay, he was young. He's matured a lot. And you know, that guy's been through a lot. He's lost his mother and father in the last year. I
Yeah.
don't know Lane Kiffin. I've only been around him a few times. I mean, at different games or events or whatever. You do. You know these coaches. You run with them. You get to be around them. You know, having his brother and all nieces and nephews and kids there, I don't think you can put a price tag on happy man like Lane Kiffin and what that means to Ole Miss football. And there's certainly the money trail is following Lane Kiffin and the Grove Collective, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's, Lane's just matured off the field, which has helped him mature on the field. I mean, you got the Kiffin compound now. Lane sold his house to Chris, his brother, and all their kids, and then he bought the house next door to his old house, and so there it's like one big compound there at the country club now, and there's about 7 kids running around, and they're having a big time. It's the first time, probably since they were growing up as kids that everybody's back together. Even his, ex-wife moved in from California. She's
Yeah.
back in town. All his kids are back in town now. So everybody's in Oxford. It's been well documented. He went sober after COVID year in
Yeah.
2020. He works out religiously now. He's I don't know if found God is the right word, but he's certainly closer to the man above. And
He's come home.
it's just, it's when you mature like he has, you're gonna be better at your job no matter what you do.
Yeah, it really is. Yancy, we've run out of time, man. Awesome stuff. And Rodney Orr, little technical issues. We'll work through those. Love Rodney Orr. Tighter Insider, only $48 a year. Catch him tonight, Tighter Insider TV, live on YouTube. Yancy, we'll do it again next week. Have a great weekend and happy Labor Day in advance.
You too, everybody. Have a blessed day. God
All
bless.
right. Thank you so much. Ditto. All right, let's say something real quick. Getting out today, cars, trucks, SUVs, Landers, Ford, Poplar, and Houston Levy. $500 off. Take a picture of the QR code for Sidelines audience members. All right, what they've got in stock is a lot of vehicles. Start with asking for Brad Bellamy, the general manager. He is our friend. He's on the show Fridays. They'll help you working on the financing and get you in what you can afford. It's about the right fit. They've got Broncos. They've got the Ford Escapes. They've got sedans. Yes, they still make sedans. They've got them. The F-150 series, the King Ranch. Man, these are good-looking vehicles. Landers Ford open Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And if you have service issues, they will provide round-trip transportation to get your vehicle worked on. Landers Ford, if you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, you probably paid too much. And they're right down the street from our good friends at Hewlett & Dunn. Stopped by there yesterday, took lunch to the crew out there, Lydia, Raven, J.M. Huffman. They're getting stuff in every day. Still got a 50% off rack. They got a good-looking, proper British sweater made by Barber, half price, wool with the shoulder patches and the elbow patches. It is classy. It is royalty. They've got Filson, STS. Man, they've got boots, kids' boots for little kids, 3-year-old kids. They've got men's and women's clothing, Ariat. Oh, my gosh, Wrangler. They've got the luggage from Filson, the duck heads. They've got so much stuff in there. You can't see it all at once. It takes a lot of visits. It's right next to Memphis. HewlettandDunn.com. Order anywhere, they'll ship it right away. And Rumble Boxing, Union and McLean. How you fight is how you live. Let me tell you what, they're open every day of the week. Boxing classes. Get in there. 48 spots in each class. The bags, the weights, great instructors. It'll change your life. And look, you having trouble sleeping, want to chill, want to get some energy, Lights Out Gummies. Pro Athletes Hemp Association, David Bartu, our good friend. Order some of these. They're legal in all 50 states. You will sleep like a 9-year-old kid. I use these and they work. They're no sleep hangover. That's the key. you order, use the promo code Sidelines. They'll ship it right away. Hey, everybody have a great day. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Stay tuned to this channel day and night. Content executive producer Brenden Martin is the best in the world. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks so much. Share the show.